make sure that your mic is muted at all times. And if you have a question, just lift up your hand and I will give you a chance to speak. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box as we proceed with the session. The session is 3 hours long, and we'll try and have some breaks in between so that we avoid monotony. Other than that, I'd like to welcome Anne Lawi to take over the session. Anne, karibu.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Really happy to be here. And I don't know where you are is as cold as where I am, but yeah, this is supposed to be January, not this cold, but rain is good, right? Kindly, if we can do as Brian requested of us, introduce ourselves, your name, the organization, and your interest in this session today. Let's do that. It's very interesting. For me, grant and proposal writing is a very interesting topic. And for that being, it's a make or break for any organization. So let's start with introducing ourselves and the organization we come from. Yeah, that will be my first ask of us. So before I introduce myself and I introduce the session, I want to ask a trivial question. And then I'll show why I'm asking the trivial question. So my question is, when it comes, what is your, or rather, it's not a trivial question. Let me not ask the trivial question right now. Let me rephrase the question. When it comes to grant and proposal writing, what is your biggest challenge, and also at the same time, what is the easiest part to write? What is your biggest challenge and what is your easiest part to write? Just feel free to write your answer or put your hand up so that we can hear your thoughts. And there is no right or wrong because we have different strengths, different understanding of grant proposals. So just don't feel that there is a right or wrong answer. I'm waiting. Wow. There's no one even with a single answer. Good. I have had one answer from Leah, Gloria. She says she leads fundraising. Her biggest challenge is giving clear, concise, or precise info, and her strength is storytelling. You know, it's one coin with two sides. That's a very good. I like that. Your strength is storytelling. That means then you have a lot of content. How do you make that concise and straight to the point? Olympia Chakava, her answer is to curate financial proposal that is competitive. Really, that's very technical, but we will come to that. Maureen Miriam, Maureen Miriam. Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, Maureen Mora. Did I miss? Oh, no. Maureen Miriam. My challenge is the ask. My easiest part is the problem statement. Fantastic. That is Maureen Miriam. Farista Mweki, the financial proposal is usually the hardest for me. My easiest is the problem statement. Maureen Moran, the answer is kindly if we can, Collins, if you can mute yourself so that we are not hearing your background. Maureen Moran, from Somo. Hi, Maureen. She heads Somo fundraising team, and that her biggest challenge is on storytelling in a way that resonate with the funders. They are targeting, also tailoring a very clear proposition for various partners and funders. And then there is Dr. Faith Yato. My challenge is getting the niche. And I really love the curation of all those challenges versus your strengths. As you are hearing and as you see from everyone who is sharing today, fundraising, it's like a changing goalpost every time. You know, some of the processes, for example, when it comes to other aspects of our organization, you know, it's clear cut. You put a process, that's the process. It doesn't change, right? If, for example, it's in finance, if the process is put in place, this is how you requisition for money, or this is how the process of financial fiduciary look like. If it's put in place, it's put in place and doesn't change. But when it comes to fundraising, proposal writing, and other aspects of BD, business development, it's revolving and it's evolving every cycle and every time. And that's what we need to start with this journey today. That's what we need to start mastering. What do we need to do right? And how do we go about it? So thank you so much for indulging me. Allow me to share my screen so that I can kick us off with the session. And I really do appreciate that you are active and participating in this session, because one of the things that you're going to realize as we go through this is that fundraising and proposal writing, you have to be hands-on. You have to be 100% hands-on, even with the learning process that we are going through. So I'm going to share my screen. So with me sharing the screen, I will not see so much of your participation. So, but I guess I can see your hands when they're up. So today, the topic, as you heard, is the writing comparing grant proposals step by step. I will be taking you through my experience in this shortly, but before I even start on our topic today, one of the two things that I would want us to have in mind is that when it comes to grant writing or grant proposal writing, the learning process is more informed by you and not necessarily the information that you're interacting with. And what does that mean? Allow me to switch off my camera. I don't know. Let me see whether my internet will be a bit stable, but if it's unstable, I'll switch off my camera. What do I mean by that? Studies shows your learning process, if you just listen, you learn 10%. If you listen and you get involved, you learn up to 70%. If you listen You hear, you see, you get involved, and you increase your learning up to 90%. Because this is a topic that is very dear to all of you, I kindly ask that you all get to listen. You get to really pay attention to the areas of discussion. You get involved, and also we will have some activities in between, or some task to do in between. You get to do them so that you are able to absorb and retain that information. Because this is not just another training session. You are acquiring skills and tools for you to be able to fundraise for your organization. So that said, I will not read this through. I'll not read this through, but the purpose of this, as Brian mentioned in the beginning, is that how can we utilize other ecosystem members within the Assek ecosystem to learn and be able to share the knowledge and exchange our expertise, our knowledge, our know-how, and our way of doing things to other organizations within Assek, but also within larger East African region, and I would say across Africa. The focus of this is to share what are the implementing best practices when it comes to ESO strengthening, and in this case, what are the best practices when it comes to grant proposal writing? What are those step by step? What are those must do's or don'ts? And we also have to highlight that this is more geared towards professionals or individuals who would want to grow their knowledge when it comes to proposal writing, their knowledge when it comes to business development, because BD is a broader scope of business development. Grant and proposal writing is just one single vertical within the BD. So for those who would want to grow their professional interest in learning the fundamentals of writing compelling grant proposals, and also understanding what are the practical step-by-steps required to become a successful grant writer. So the session, our session, or this session is in two parts. There is session 1, which we are going to cover today, and it have 3 areas. This is such a broad topic when it comes to grant and proposal writing, because there are different variants of grant and proposals, and they have different approaches. But today, being our first session, we'll cover 3 areas. Which session 1 will compose of grant proposal. What is a grant proposal? What goes into grant proposal, and then the framework of fundraising. What is our framework that you need to put in place? That's what we'll cover today. And we'll have some tasks and some practicals to cover. And then the next session that we'll have, which will be a lot of it practical, and session 2, and I guess it will be physical. It will cover all the other areas. So, who am I? So my name is Anne Lawi. I have more than 18 years of experience in venture building, entrepreneurship, supporting African founders across Africa. I have done a lot at Pan-African level. I have worked with more than 18 national networks across Africa, supporting them to create governance structure, have strategy, create operational models for excellence, create business structures and sustainability across Africa. I've also worked closely, so national networks is organization like Assek across Africa. I've also worked with different hubs across Africa, just creating their strategy, operationalizing their operational strategy and putting the governance in place, as well as fundraising, because for me, fundraising is a very small component of building an organization. I have more than 18 years of experience in impact investment. That's clearly my biggest passion. The other things are just things that I must have within my areas of operations, but my passion is around unlocking investment, and through that, then I am able to create the necessary building block for ecosystem building across Africa. I have raised more than 50 million USD in grants and other fundraising avenue, unlocking funding opportunities across Africa. So this is the funding that I have raised across different organizations that I have worked with. In the last, maybe in the last 5 to 7 years. I don't want to mention numbers, but last year I was able to raise quite a big amount for the organization that I'm working with. And the year before, able to raise also significant amount for Pangea and Pangea Accelerator. So that being said, so I have extensive experience and expertise around fundraising, but I'll still insist grant writing is a very small component of the whole fundraising or business development. So even as you go through this session, you have to start thinking, what are those aspects that I need to have in place for me to become a better grant writer? And one of those key aspects I would want to mention very quickly is grant writing, it's all about strategy. Because you are curating and putting information across to someone to give you money based on the strategy of the organization that you're representing. So it has a lot of strategy for you. So the biggest asset for you to gain is, how do I start to think strategically? And what are those building blocks do I need to have in place for me to start thinking strategically? I'm also a project management expert, business strategy expert, manager investor, and I'm a former vice chair of Assek. And we start with what is a grant proposal. And this is I wanted to make it very light and not complicated. But what is a grant proposal? A grant proposal is a very clear, concise presentation of what you are proposing to do before it actually happens. And we will be looking step by step of what is required to actually develop a winning grant proposal. So it's as simple as that. It's just a concise presentation of what you're willing or what you are proposing to do before it actually happens. And what informs that? What informs this is the request for proposal, and that is a request for proposals or request for submission of applications that different organization will put out for you, right? So just remember, it's just a presentation and it have to be clear and concise. So the contrast, we just saw someone saying, I'm a very good storyteller, but my biggest challenge is how do I make it concise and direct to the point? So, and what are the things that we need to be able to do to be able to reach that? So we'll be covering that shortly. So I move to the next slide. What are the different types of grants that are out there? And here I will request your participation, like we said, for our learning process. We'll listen, we'll participate, we'll get involved. So based on your own understanding, what do you, or the way you have interacted with different grants sources, what is your own understanding, or when it comes to examples of government-funded grants, what examples do you have in mind? But before you answer, let's just walk through all of them and then you can answer examples of each. So the different type of grants that exists out there, this is not exhaustive, but these are the most commonly that you will see out there. But so they are this being not so it's not exhaustive. So the first one is government funded grants. This is type of a grant where different governments put aside money for different agendas. And in this case, you have to remember that anyone who give you money, they have an agenda, they have an objective. And you have to remember any objective has a lot to do with if it's government or even organization or even whoever sources are, the objective of anyone giving you money, it have to align with your objective. There must be some aspect of how do we grow wealth or how do we add value to our country, our people, and for the organization, to our organization or to the field that we believe in. So for government-funded grants, if let's say, for example, in this case, either of the governments, and in this case, in West or from East nowadays, what do they want to achieve? That have to be, you have to must have that in mind, even as you go through these different types of sources of grants. So government-funded grants, they are driving and would want to accomplish certain objectives. So that have to be aligned with your thinking based on what you want to achieve, or rather you are proposing to achieve. The second sources of grant is private foundation. The third sources is CSR or CSR grants or corporate social responsibility grants. The third sources is international agency and multilateral organization grants. And fourth, this being not exhaustive, is venture philanthropy, venture philanthropy or impact investment grants. Now, back to us. What are different examples that you have in mind when it comes to government-funded grants? Which one do you have in mind? I give a hint. There have been a lot circulating about, and remember, I cannot see your hand, so just open your mic and speak, because I can't see. There have been a lot of news circulating of certain governments putting across stop to work order or stop order. Any hands?
Stop to work order.
Stop to work order or stop order. All right. Examples, people. When it comes to Richard, you can go ahead.
For example, government funded the grants.
Say that again.
You're asking for examples of government funded grants?
Yes.
Okay, I'm thinking USAID from the US.
Exactly. Yes, that is one. Any other source? Do we know? Government funded grants. We also have GIZ funding. Most of you have a lot of GIZ funding. You want to tell me you don't know that? Government. Okay, so we have GIZ that is able to channel. Yes, go ahead. I can hear someone speaking.
Slovakia.
Good, yes. Good. Yes, that's a good example.
There is also the World Bank, the Kiev Skype project.
And how do you classify that? Under which category?
Would we say that is a PPP?
No, we said so. Okay, yes. In terms of how it's channeled, it's structured, is that a PPP? But based on what I have given, We have given around 4 categories. We have government-funded, private foundation and grants, CSR or corporate social responsibility, international agency, multilateral organization grants, venture philanthropy, or impact investment grants. Where would you classify that?
International.
Yes, you're right. International agency, multilateral organization. Yes, that is right. Any other? Keep them coming, please. Remember, this is so important. This is lesson 101 for you. If you do not know how to classify the kind of grants that are coming, then you will get it all wrong from the beginning. So it's important for you to just share your thoughts so that then we see what is our understanding of different classification of sources of grants. Any other option? Any other thoughts? Share of thoughts? So we said the government funded, we have USAID, we are USAID, we have GIZ funding. You want to tell me there is no one being funded by FCDO here? Or you don't know where that comes from? FCDO, UK, there before it used to UK aid. There is also Dutch government funding. Most of the funding that comes from the embassy, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So for example, there is Canadian embassy, Australian embassy. Most of those are government funded grants. And we have to have an understanding, what is the short-term and long-term objective of the government, short-term, medium-term, and long-term within the country that it's operating or extending those grants. Without that understanding, it'll be very hard for you to be able to qualify for those grants. The second category being the private foundations. The foundations are quite extensive in number, but those that we know of, there is Bill Merida Gate Foundations, there is Fund Foundation, there's Small Foundation, Eminson Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation, and so Oak Foundation. There's so many foundations that are out there. The key to note is that this foundation, they also have key objectives. And these key objectives, they are the ones that informs how they extend their grants. And those key objectives also have key thematic areas, and the key thematic areas have funding criteria. So please note that down, that any foundation will have key objective will have thematic areas will have funding criteria, and funding criteria will be the one that then informs how they channel and award those grants. Criteria, and please feel free to raise your hand and ask question in between, because my question right there would be, okay, what is the commonalities among the funding criteria of different foundations that are out there? And commonalities, one of the key commonalities that you might find with a lot of foundations will be, for example, geographical locations of where they are focusing on to the funding. The other will be the economic levels of different countries. What economic levels or standards of the countries or geographical areas that they are focusing on. One of the things that you'll be able to, I don't know whether you guys have been in this space long enough, but Kenya got classified as a middle level income countries from maybe around 7 or 5 years ago. I can't remember that. I didn't check that. And what happened is that most of the foundations or most of the funding organization or grant-making organization. They moved their grants from giving out to Kenya, and they went to the neighboring countries. So you will find that you might find a certain foundation was funding Kenya, but they ceased to funding Kenya, and they're funding other countries around us. So those are some of the criteria that you need to be aware, even as you scout for available grant funding organization. What are some of those things that informs that they will fund a region or a company, or sorry, an organization? Another criteria is, are you a nonprofit or for profit? Those also informs, and also another criteria might be your level of income annually. Some organization will say we don't fund organizations that are below a threshold of 1 million USD as a budget, or 2 million USD as a budget. Some will say you must handle this kind of money, and our funding cannot constitute more than 30% of your budget. So those are some of the things that you must be aware of different funding. And how do you get to know those things? You get to know these things by interacting with a lot of funding criteria. So fundraising, or rather grant writing, it's not about the text only that you put in place. It has a lot of strategy, like I said, of positioning the ideas and the thoughts that you have towards the funding criteria of the grantor or the grant maker that you're writing to. So that is a fright. I was just, in general, walking you through what are the things to consider, but moving to corporate CSR kind of grants and examples, we have, for example, Bringing It Home, KCB Foundation, Stanchart Foundation. Going it a bit global, we have Google Impact Challenge, we have Facebook Foundation. Coming back home, we have Safaricom Foundation, we have Microsoft. Again, there is thematic area, there is an objective, thematic area, funding criteria that you need to put in context as you start, or rather, if you start thinking who to contact and how to go about it. International agency and multilateral organization grants. There's a lot of these out there. Some of this is like UNs. There's a lot of UN bodies that are out there to fall under this category. There's a World Bank grant, like someone mentioned. There is a European Union Horizon Europe funding, and so many other around those lines of the multilateral. There is CEDA, there is NORAD, and those can cut across. Some of these, and AFDB also comes here, for example. And then there is venture philanthropy or impact investment grants. These are not investments, equities, but grants. And what are those examples that exist out there? We have Acumen Funds grants, we have Eco and Green, we have Omdaya Networks, we have Ashoka. Those are just the examples that exist out there. Good. Let me move on to the next slide. So what are the first steps when it comes to grant writing? When it comes to writing a grant proposal or grant proposal writing, what are the key first steps? I will be walking us through step by step of the whole process to start with, and the tools and the resources that we need to put in place for us to be ready to have the right information, but also to make the right decision. But quickly, before you write any grant proposal, it's very important for you to have the idea and what informs the idea. And I will keep giving example a lot with Assek as an organization. So in this case, the most important aspect of putting the ideas together is understanding the organization mission, objective, and vision. So what is the mission, for example, of Assek? So the mission of Assek is to unify and empower entrepreneurs, support organization to foster inclusive ecosystem that drives innovation and sustain economic growth. So any idea that they are putting in place, anything that they need to, or rather any programmatic proposal that they need to put in place as an idea to any funder, it have to revolve around ESOs, fostering inclusive ecosystem that drive innovation and sustain economic growth. And how do you, and break it down, it moves to, that is the mission. The vision is to be the leading voice of globally recognized dynamic and inclusive ecosystem that is driving sustainable growth and technological advancement. So anything that they do have to be around them being a leading voice globally, and inclusive ecosystem that is driving sustainable growth for ESOs. And for them to be able to break it down to understandable thematic areas, they have key objectives. So, and the key objectives, for example, it have been broken down to 5 areas. The objective, for example, is, the first objective is enhance operational efficiency of the ESOs that they support. And under that, they have different key activities, or rather broad activities that they can do. The second objective is membership development and growth of ESOs. They have different broader activities that they can do around there. And the third one is facilitate access to funding for ESOs. And the fourth one, access to advocacy and policy influence. Now, looking at those, so I have started with a very big, broader vision, and then mission, and then objective. So any idea that Assek will be discussing or thinking through have to be within the vision, and then to the key objective. And the question they ask themselves, if I am talking, for example, with Ford Foundation, do they support ESOs? Are they very keen on innovation? Yes, what kind of innovation? This kind of, have they ever funded a network organization? What kind of network of organization have they funded before? What are the key activities do they have? What is their mission? What is their vision? What is their key strategic goal in the next 5 years? Because for this is it's the strategic goal for Assek in the next 3 years. What is their strategic goal? Is there any liming or liming objective that is within what Assek is focusing on versus what they're focusing on? And that's how you put together the idea. Idea cannot be based on, oh, we support entrepreneurs and we will just do a program. No, it has to be so strategic, and it have to be focused on both what you're doing versus what they are looking for, and then align based on achieving your own objective, but also elevating and achieving their key objective by them using the money that they have given you. Because remember, they're giving you money because they have an objective. They're giving you money because they have an agenda. So you have to see a common ground of how do you achieve your own objective versus at the same time helping them achieve their objectives. And that's where, if those lines become very easy to say, this is what we are going to do. For example, if Assek was speaking to the small foundation and they found that they are very keen on working with networks to improve access to markets of entrepreneurs through the existing networks and association in the region, then it will be easy for them to say, oh, good. One of our key objectives is strengthening of ecosystem networks. And we are working, currently we are working with we are leading the conversation in Kenya. We have working memorandum with AfriRab and Startup Uganda and Association of Startup startup and ESOs in Tanzania. And with that, we can do these several activities. One, maybe to strengthen exchange of ideas or exchange of knowledge between different hubs in Kenya and Tanzania and Uganda. You see, now it's falling in place. And that's how you are able to create the idea. And it have to be based on the key objectives of the two different organizations and how it can be broken down to key activities that then give outcomes within the key objectives that the two organizations would want to achieve. I want to pause there because sometimes I'm very passionate about this. This is something that I do day to day. I am super passionate, so I can talk without taking a break, but I would want to pause there with the idea and see whether there is any question around that. Are we good? We are okay when it comes to how?
And
Yes.
this is Jobs and Innovation Hub, Nakuru County. A quick question. You can hear me? Okay, great. My question goes to, sometimes there are those grants that are floated or proposal request for proposal, and you find you apply, and we know some organizations, they are structured differently. We have foundations, we have non-profit making, we have social enterprise, and we have private limited company that are still within this ecosystem. For example, like us, I have a case example, we are registered as a private company. So you find that sometimes works to a disadvantage because you find the fund focuses on probably non-profit making or something like that. Maybe you could talk more about that. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. That's a very good question. And that has a lot to do with strategy. So I'll come to that. So thank you. Thank you. So I had a question. The reason why I came here, there was a question about, or rather some shared thoughts around generating ideas. I'm trying to see who had asked that. So I'll come to answer and address that question that have just been asked. But there's someone who had requested, or rather they had indicated their challenge or why they're here, they would want to deepen their knowledge in terms of how to generate ideas or putting together the proposals. If that was you, let me know. You can just write a comment. Let me know that it's clear in terms of how to generate ideas and putting together the areas of proposals, proposal writing that you can submit. Let me proceed. So let me proceed. The second, so we have discussed a lot the idea generation. The second place is the planning, and the planning has a lot to do, and even the idea generation is a bit broader. So the planning has to do with, you have settled on the areas that you would want to, like the broader areas of ideas that you'd want to raise money for. And those ideas have to be informed by the key strategic areas of the organization versus the foundations that you're looking to seek funding from. So the planning has a lot to do with you putting down, asking yourself, putting down the different list of different foundation you are targeting, because fundraising has different approaches, and we'll be covering that at the guidelines framework to guide the process. We'll be covering that. But let's say, for example, in this case, assume we have seen a call for application out there, and we have an idea of how we see how we align with them. We have an idea. We want to prepare towards submitting that proposal. So how do we go about it? The first aspect of it is to read everything through of what is being asked for. Sometimes I know we quickly skim through the application process, or request for application quickly, and then we say we will apply, or even say we will apply even before we go through the request for proportions, request for proposal document. So it's very important for you first to read through everything within the request for proposal. So that's the first thing. Secondly, put aside, or rather list down, or rather copy what is the criteria of funding that they have put in place. And this cuts around or covers the areas they are focusing, who they would want to apply, what are the they call it bare minimum that they are looking for, what kind of the organization that they are looking for, and why. So that is what it's covered in the criteria. The other bits of planning is based on what they ask, based on what they anticipate, because most call for application has the anticipated outcome. The question you ask yourself as an organization, are you able to deliver that outcome? Or do you need to team up with someone else to be able to deliver? The biggest mistake I have seen most of the organization, especially ESO, do is to want to have their cake and eat it. And what do I mean by that? You want to apply for example, for foundation or for multilateral grants, and you want to apply a loan. And maybe that project is multi-region. And if it's multi-region, and also at the same time, remember I said every funding, every grant maker has an objective. And one of the things that I have seen that cut across for all especially the multilateral government funded and foundation, the biggest belief is that that money has to go to cultivate the people of that country to greater extent, and a bit of it have to create a channel on how it goes back to that country, or it goes to that sector or industry, so that it can create more money and create more traction and build some sort of traction for that organization to be able to get money, more money to be able to give. That's how they make money, right? To continue making grants. So the mistake we make, for example, if you want to apply for the European Union Horizon, you want to apply it alone, and even if you put a very good proposal, high chances is that you may not be able to, you will not be awarded. Why? First of all, the reason why they are giving that grant in the first place is to cultivate the European Union region, to have more business, to increase trade, to increase innovation, or to do something. You are implementing even if it's in Africa, how does that create trade in European Union? So you have to see, how do I partner with someone, one, that will take the lead, and then I am good in this component that I can be able to implement. So that's the thinking that you need to put in place. And even if you're doing locally, I have seen a lot of time, and that's a strategy I have used a lot, is that you'd rather have 10 grants or 10, 15 projects. You are co-implementing or co-implementer with other people compared to just having one and struggling with your runways because you have just one project and your runway are 3 months, 6 months. So I encourage a lot of teaming up, collaborating, and putting consortium together as you plan, so that you can up to 90% be able to meet the funding criteria and meet the objectives of the funders. So that has a lot to do with planning, because if you're putting a consortium together, you must think who is the lead, what are the key expertise are required within that. So that's the other aspect. What are the key expertise required for implementing this? The most people that I have seen that win a lot of projects, and I will not shy to say this, they don't necessarily use their team internally because they know they don't have key expertise as an organization to have a lead, project lead, a technical lead that have all the specifics of the specifics ask and qualification to be able to meet the funding criteria, especially for the big funding organization. And what do I see them do? I will not lie to you. I get a lot of requests. We have this funding proposal from international consortium firm, be it, yeah, let me not name names, but I get a lot of those. And we have this funding proposal we are putting together, and we have looked at your profile on LinkedIn, and we would want you to be our technical lead because of this area. Are you interested? And I look at those firms, they're international firms, but because these projects are in Africa, they know as much as they might have very good technical expertise within their portfolio, it will not stand out. And that is one of the reasons why they will keep winning for these big projects in Africa, because they are better positioning themselves than anybody else. Again, I have seen a lot of consortium, big a global organization, and in this case is Europe and the rest of the region, Europe, UK, and US, saying we have this proposal, we are implementing this, we want to come together with the organization, and this is what we think you can add value because we are coming with this value. We don't do a lot of those. And those are the areas that in your organization, you need to start thinking, how do I, one, build at least a pool of the organization and create networks that I can be teaming up from consortium with. Secondly, how do I build a list of key expertise in investments, in ecosystem building, in this area, key areas of expertise of people that I can bring on board when I am submitting, that I can demonstrate as an organization that we have key expertise that is needed. And so that is all come together when you are planning. When you have that in place, it becomes very easy because we started with identifying what are the ideas, what are the planning that we need to go through, and then we go to strategy. And I come to the question that was asked. And also, I guess, a bit of that question have to be covered in planning. As you go through the funding criteria, the organization will be very clear. So I take 2 steps, 3 steps back. As you put together the idea, are you and the different organizations that you might be sourcing. So I said there might be 2, or there might be more than 2 ways of sourcing for different organizations that you can target. If it's from a call for application, yeah, we're within the call for application where someone have put out a call for application for funding. If that is what is on paper, and I'm specifying and differentiating because different processes might have different ways of going about it. So if you have a call for application out there that you're responding to, you have the ideas in place, you have planned. So part of the planning is what kind of organization are they looking for? And how many organizations? Is it multi-regional? Is it that they want one organization to implement? Is there a cap of how much they can fund? How many proposals are they looking for? And in that, are they going to redistribute within different regions? And I give an example. UNDP were doing the implementation of the book to around the 5 clusters that they have in Africa: North Africa, Central Africa, East Africa, West Africa, and South Africa. You had to ask if you had applied for and you wouldn't apply for the. I can't remember. I remember us asking that. So you have to ask yourself, where is our strongest area and who can we team up with so that we have a winning bid? So that is one. So regional focus and who you're teaming up with to be able to win or rather put together that proposal. Secondly, you have to ask yourself, do you demonstrate that you have key technical expertise within your team or the technical expertise that you are highlighting within your proposal? Remember I said, you may not, it's not a must as a company or as an organization, you have that key expertise within your organization. You need to start putting together a pool of key expertise that you need within different areas that you can be teaming up with to submit a proposal, right? And as part of planning and strategy at the same time together is what kind of organization are they looking for? And sometimes they will put an organization, they will put the years of audits that they need, they will put a threshold of how much as a budget you must have. Sometimes for GIZ, I have seen that you must have handled a budget of 1 million or 2 million USD, and you must demonstrate that based on the audited report. And that's when you start asking yourself, is the organization within that level? If not, is there anyone within your reach or within your networks that you can team up with that they have that kind of budgets or have that kind of networks? And the question maybe you're asking yourself, if someone have that, why would they want to team up with us if they feel they have that kind of, muscle? And capacity to apply? Why would they team up with someone else? Let me tell you, and I have fundraised a lot when in different organizations, but I give an example in Pangea. And as we started out, we may not have had so many projects, but we got to team up with a lot of organizations. Why would they team up with us? We were very clear what was our niche and what we put on the table that is different from someone else. You have to be able to define what are your niche. What do you bring on the table that someone else will not? And it's not a bluff. When I say a bluff, it have to be tangible. You have to be able to substantiate. You have to be able to tangibilize. It have to be tangible, right? And that is part of strategy. What is it that you bring on the table? For example, for Assek, as an example, they bring on the table that as much as there is other network organization in the region, but Assek is one of the organization in the region that is a leading voice, that is a network of ESOs, entrepreneurs support organization, and they can claim that we have these networks, they are our members, and with this we are able to reach these numbers of entrepreneurs, not through us directly, but through the ESOs or entrepreneur support organization that we support. That's something they bring on the table that any other organization may not necessarily be able to claim that. So what do you bring on the table yourself as an organization? And if you're not able to substantiate that, then you have a problem with your value proposition as an organization. And if you have a problem with that and you are supporting entrepreneurs who you are supposed to guide to create a value proposition, then you got it wrong in so many layers, and that is something that need to be corrected very clearly. So that is very important. So that part of the strategy on how you can be able to get people to team up with you. Remember I said that you must understand the kind of organization that different type of organization registration that they require. In some application, they will say that they want nonprofit and they want nonprofit. Some will say any organization might do, or they must be a nonprofit, or they must be a profit, or whatever. So there is classification of what kind of organization per registration that a grant maker is asking for. And how do you position yourself for that? What I have seen as a strategy with most organizations is that they have created different entities within the entity. And why is so? It's because that there is you want to have for-profit entity, which maybe does consultancy, do the rest of the things as they are supposed to be done. But also you'll find a lot of funding might come as non-profit, and you must have a non-profit arm. So I have seen most organizations creating also a non-profit arm within the same name. And whenever they have the bids of non-profits, they have that. And what you have, I have seen that the organization need to do is clearly having two policies of how they have a non-compete and how those two organizations are separate from each other. Because then the finances and the processes of doing things for those two organizations have to be very clear, separate from each other to avoid conflict of interest for those two organizations. So that's the strategy that as an organization and from the leadership of the organization have to put in place. So when we have nonprofits, grant making opportunities, what entity, what vehicle do you use as an organization? That must be addressed within the organization to see, to be able to put the necessary tool that you need for you to be able to unlock some of these opportunities. And these nonprofits will also depend on around the five thematic or the five sources of grants that I have mentioned. I said there is government, there is private foundation, there is corporate social responsibility or corporate foundations, there is international agencies, and there is philanthropies. All those, I go back to what I mentioned as we are starting. All those different areas, they have key objective, and those key objective areas, they have thematic areas or themes that they focus on. Those themes, they have funding criteria. Please go through those funding criteria for you to be able to know, how do I put these steps for putting together the grant proposal? And lastly, after your strategy is to now write your proposal. And if you follow some of those tips that I have shared with you, you are guaranteed a big percentage of success. I am going to pause there when I see whether there is any question up to there. Any question? Do we have any question? Okay.
Just a question.
Yes, Richard.
Sorry. On the aspect of what you call collaboration or forming a consortium or technical, getting technical expertise and leads. Sometimes, so you're saying now, if, for example, it is a time-bound thing, you have to submit by a certain date. So the forming of the experts for a list of expertise or the other organization that I'm going to partner with, it means either it has happened before, or we already have the discussions, and so this is just putting it together. We're just there's this call that has come. So you're saying we must have, so it's like preparing in advance, having organizations that we can work together, having these what are they called, the technical experts that we can use, so that when it comes to, if there's a deadline, you just pull them together within a short time. Is that what you're saying?
So there is two approach to it. So I reckon that in certain organization, you may not have put those processes in place. already, or you have not started putting pools of technical expertise or organization that you can form consortium with. So those are two different things. So if it's the first, if it's, so with the two options, I go with the option one. If you have not you have not put the pool of technical expertise you can work with, an organization you can form consortium with. So the first thing is to see who will be a quick turnaround. Do I know people? Do I know people who can connect or introduce me to be able to put this together and sell the idea of them forming a consortium with us if they are not teaming up with someone else? That's the first thing you do if there is a call for application that you need to respond to. If there aren't, we are at the beginning of the year. We are planning and strategizing for the year. This is when you start. You start thinking what are the different areas based on the ideas and strategic direction of the organization. What are the different areas that we want to fundraise for? Now, within those, can we start mapping out different organizations that we can team up and start talking to them? And talking to them come from a place of, we are thinking of fundraising in renewable energy and agriculture. We have we have a broad thinking, not specifically anything narrowed down. The reason for that is that you don't want to narrow them down. You want to co-create together the idea from a broader thematic area, right? So you reach out to them and say, we are thinking of fundraising in this area, smart agriculture and renewable energy. We have seen that you are doing different projects in this area, and we are thinking we can co-fundraise together. And in most cases, in my experience, because I have done that, and I have even reached out to some of the people that I have seen here, and we have done proposals together, is that most people, they have nothing to lose. If you're leading the process and you're asking them, this is what I need, this is what I need, and you're putting the proposal together and you agree what part of the section of the proposal they will do and what you'll do, and just make sure it's flowing, they have nothing to lose, right? We are stronger together than we are individually. And I have seen people coming together to accept that. And you make that process reciprocal, so that if they come with a proposal, then you'll also be you'll be agreeable and amiable to be able to put those proposals or funding proposals together. I don't know whether it makes sense. So
thank you for that. Yeah, thanks.
Right. There's a point that came to mind and then disappeared as I was speaking. All right. Just a second. Connect myself to power. Okay. So I'll take us through.
It seems we have lost Anne. So just a moment as we wait for her to come back online.
Sorry. I thought I connected myself to power, but my machine went off. So I want to take us through to the next item that I would want us to cover today. And then from there, when we go through that, it's more about, let me share my screen. So it's more about the guideline, the guideline framework to guide the process. So when I take us through, it's a bit heavy, and then we can we can do one task. We can take a break after we go through the guidelines, we ask the questions, then we take a break, and then from there we'll come do a task. Okay, so that's where we are. So let me transition us to the guiding framework. And when I was reviewing this, I decided I will not put it into PowerPoint presentation because I want to share it to you as it is, as a guideline for everyone. And I felt like if I put it into PPT, I'll mutilate it and I'll lose a lot of information. And I would want to share as much information as possible. So the first thing as an organization you need to create, and I hope it's, let me know whether you can be able to see what is on my screen as I project. So what I thought I would do is to create a step-by-step fundraising process framework. And this is a bit broader. Forgive me if it's a bit broader. And the reason for that, I felt, like I said, proposal writing is just one vertical within so many other layers of being a successful fundraiser. So I thought of putting together a framework that include key actions, tools, and success tips to guide you through each stage of fundraising or raising funds for your organization. Because like I have seen someone asking, when you're raising funds, it's not all about writing proposals. You can also have targeted approaches to raising funds. And one of the things that I keep on really discouraging as we fundraise is to spray and pray. What do I mean by that? You spray that where you have put a lot of application out there, and then also start praying that one will come through. I think that is one of the approaches that I know it doesn't work. Because like I said, most of the funders are very, very targeted and they are based on objective. And when you spray and pray, you are so stretched thin that most of those proposals are not tailored to the need or request or objective, and there is a lot of misalignment. So how do you put a process in place that is able to guide you to be so targeted? And you say this year, I am going to target to put across or to have 15 targeted fundraising processes in place. How do you go about to even having 15, and then within that you focus to win even 3 or 4 within the year? What are the key steps that you need to put in place? So that's what I'm taking you through. So the first steps, it's step number 1 is pre-planning and strategy development. And the goal of this is to build a solid fundraising strategy aligned with the organization mission and goal. Like I said, the first steps for you as a different organization. Some of you may not have the strategy document, but you need to have an understanding. What is the mission? What is the vision? What is the mission? What is the vision? What is our objective this year? What do we want to achieve? What do we want to achieve? An objective is not just a statement. It must have numbers. So for example, if for Assek, they are saying they need to support strengthening of ecosystem networks in the next 3 years. They have written different broad activities that they can do, but also they have a number of targeted ESOs that they are planning to train and provide insightful knowledge within the 12 months. So strategy, yes, it gives strategic objectives, it gives you the direction, but also it gives you the measurable numbers. So you must have that in place. And it's very important for you to be able to contextualize your fundraising needs. So the key action for that, for pre-planning and strategy development, is the first key action is to define your fundraising needs. And what does that mean? Remember, we have said that you must understand the key objectives strategic objectives. So with those key objectives, in that case, I'll keep on giving example with Assek. Assek has a goal of strengthening the ecosystem networks. What are their key strategic broad activities is develop joint programs with universities and research institutions that will strengthen cross-sectoral collaboration for knowledge exchange and dissemination to support high-quality outcomes. So that is one very strong key objectives, the key broad activity of an objective of strengthening the ecosystem network. So how do they define fundraising needs? Remember, they have said they would want to partner with universities, networks, and research institutions. So in that case, they would look, for example, for a foundation that has a very strong theme of research, innovation, and working with networks, and say we are partnering 1, 2, 3 organizations who are higher learning organizations that are doing 1, 2, 3 that will feed into a strategic objective, which is this. Right? You see, it's very aligned to their strategic goal, and it's also aligned to the funder goal because they have done the research to see who might they focus on. And so this, as you have seen, it focuses on identifying how much. It has also the aspect of how much is required and for what purpose. So what I have just described is what purpose. So the question for them is to how do we create, what are the key activities and how much do we need to be able to do this? And the question I know might come from you is, how do I know? How much do I need? The question goes back to, as an organization, have you implemented this project before? And when you implemented, what was the budget like? Was it sufficient? Was it okay? Was it low? And did you do an evaluation to see what is the optimal amount to do such an activity within the organization to achieve this outcome? So those are the things that you need to ask yourself. And some of those information will come from your finance team or even project teams that have implemented project in the past. And if the question is you are a new organization and you don't have this information, how do you go about to create that? I would highly recommend that you form a collaboration or a consortium with an organization that have implemented something in the past, so that you can have very close estimates that are within manageable numbers that can, one, make sense to the donor, but also can be able to implement that project, can be able to implement that activity. What I have done in past is to ask, and in this case, I know I'm not the right example because I have implemented a lot of diverse projects that have helped me create different estimates of different activities. But what I do, a trick that I do, is that for different activities that we have implemented before, I ask myself, what is the bare minimum amount needed? And what is an extravagant way of implementing a project? And that way you are able to have a range of, with this amount of money, it's extravagant, but it's within the range. And what do I mean by that? You must have a range that is acceptable as a standard amount that can be used to implement and get those kind of outcomes and output for a funder. Them also being able to see the value of their money, the value per dollar per the activity that you are implementing. I don't know whether that makes sense. And I'm elaborating this because I have seen a couple of people saying their biggest challenge is to create a budget, and we'll come to budget later on. But you must have some sort of understanding of different variances within what activity can cost based on what you're proposing. So that is the first action that within this activity that you must have in mind. So defining the fundraising need. And the key The key around there is to have strategic goals and strategic objectives that aligns with the need of the donor and versus the need of you and maybe the needs of the consortium partners that you're working with. The second activity is create a case study for fundraising. So when you have the strategic goal, you must ask yourself, how will this pan out? And we go back to idea generation. So I will not go deeper because I already explained that a little bit deeper. But based on the idea that you have put in place, how are you able to put a compelling story that highlights the problem, your situation, the impact and the metrics, and why the funder should invest in you or should give you the funds? What is that key things that need to come out? Remember, we broke down how to create the idea centered around the key different objective. That's how you're able to create the case for fundraising. The next key activity for this is to map out the donor funder persona. And this is super important. And that's why I walked us through the different type of donors, grant makers that exist out there. There are philanthropic organizations, there are institutional funders, there are private investors, foundation, government grants, and corporate grants. So who are you targeting? And this, it's in two fronts. Remember, we are saying, how do we create targeted fundraising funnel for ourselves? So in this case, you need to map out and create a mapping out data sheets where we have different donors that we ask, different donors, and in this case, I mean different type of donors, sources of funds that exist out there. So you need to create a data map of government grants that exist out there, foundations that exist out there, institutional funders or philanthropists that exist out there, and separate them, because the fundraising journey or process for each of those is very different. The biggest mistake we make is when we are using the process for foundation to apply for government-funded grants. Of course, you're not going to get it because the process they have overlapping areas, but the processes are very, very different. So map out different donors and personas and create those data pages or data within your repository where you are saying, this is data for foundations. These are all the foundations that we think are within. If you focus on thematic areas or you want to focus more on where the money is coming from and see how you align, that's also fine. But say these are different donors. You can focus on thematic areas for agriculture, for health, for education, and some are across industry. It's up to you, but please map out those different donors per specific sources of funding that exist. So that is very important. The next steps is to build a fundraising team. And in this case, what I have seen or what I have done in the past, because there has been instances where you are only yourselves. And this is something I learned a long time ago. You do not have to have a team internally. What I have done with this area of my career is to create a lot of friends that I know are good in proposal writing. And I would ask for a meeting for 30 minutes or 1 hour and walk through and just tell them I am thinking of putting this proposal together and I wanted to borrow your minds in these areas. What do you think? That way, it helps me to have someone else's perspective from outside in, rather than my only locked in perspective from inside out. Sometimes I have a lot of biases, which is also the case with all of us as we write. And we are narrow-minded based on our own understanding, but someone else will point out something based on their own experiences and understanding, and you will be able to see how they can help you to put that in perspective. That have helped me a lot. And because I am highlighting this because I've seen in the questionnaire that was sent out, a couple of organizations mentioned that they don't have budget and they don't have fundraising teams and they don't have anyone to fundraise. And what I have seen myself, when I started this journey, I stumbled on it as a fluke, actually. It's not something that I intended to do. And I worked for this organization and we were putting together the funding documents. And within the team, very early on in my career, maybe more than 15 years ago, within the team, we were asked, anyone who is willing to help me put this document together? And I raised my hand up. I had no clue how to go about to put together a proposal. And when we did the first proposal, I was very intrigued on the process of putting together. And that's how I found myself here. And over the time, I discovered that I can be very good in storytelling. But I think my niche and what gave me success is a strategic angle, because strategically my areas of where I know I'm very good at is just being able to understand complex things and breaking them down into understandable. That helps me to see the proposal from an angle of, okay, this is what they're asking. How do we break it down? Now, bringing back to you, you have to understand, what are you good at as a person? What areas of proposals are you good at? There are those people who are very good in creating connection, very good in creating connection. And we will be going through the processes of proposal writing. You're very good in creating connection, but also there is another aspect of retaining those connections and keeping them warm, or even asking within those connections that you create. Are you able to ask? There's also very, very good people who are very good in asking. Remember, asking is not just saying, oh, this is what we need. No, it's just having the art of you having a conversation, you're understanding what they are doing, you're understanding what you do. And within that conversation, you can be able quickly to formulate based on strategic goal of the organization or what they're saying, being able to formulate something and say, based on this, and based on we are doing this, and this is your strategic goal, and this is what you would want to achieve. Do you think this and this and this can be done? And I'm thinking we can do it this. Can we put something together? There are so good people who are, there are people who are very good at that. So do you understand your own, because you cannot just say you're good in proposal writing. What aspect of proposal or fundraising are you good at? Is it creating networks? And if you're good at creating networks, who is good at closing them within your team? And if you don't have a team, how do you ensure that you can close? And I know most of us in the organization that we are in, we have the CEOs. CEOs are very good in closing. That's why they are CEO of the organization. They're very good at closing. So could you be the one who make the link warm from cold? You move it from cold. When you contact someone and you don't know them, you have not been introduced, that is a cold lead out. Are you able to turn a lead from cold to warm, because you're very good in networks, and then from just to a conversation, and from a conversation to submitting something, to closing? And if you can't, are you able to identify someone within the team? And team is not fundraising, team within your organization. And if you are the CEO and you feel you don't have that skill, that's something you need to learn. And you can be coached, you can be mentored, and gather that skill within the spectrum of fundraising, to be able to gather 2 or 3 good skills within that for you to be able to close successfully. So that's how you put together the fundraising team. It's not necessarily a team within an organization, it's a support team within you as a person. And over time, you grow a team. So what, for example, I did in Pangea is that I started it, and within that line, when you got money, we hired a fundraising manager. And when you got money, we hired interns, and we added more people we had fundraising associates and interns. And that's how you grow the team. And you have to, because you're good at selling, fundraising and proposal writing, it's all about selling. Because you're very good at one aspect of selling, you have to continue showing the value of your organization, to put a budget of, even if it's you and an intern at some point, and you grow that team to be a team that can fundraise sufficient amount to grow the organization. So that's the point on growing the fundraising team. And the last point on that topic is set fundraising timelines. This is super important. And what I have done in the past and what I would encourage all of us is to break down a year into 4 quarters, because that's the 4 quarters, and ask yourself. So like I said, there are 2 approaches to these as I take you through. There is a targeted and there is request for proposals or request for proposal applications. So within those 2 processes, what are your target number by the end of the year, and what are your target breaking down every quarter? And so for proposal submission, what are the numbers? Remember we said you are not going to spray and pray. So what are your number for the whole year? What are your number for a quarter? That is very important. And then, and that is proposal submission, where people have put across a proposal, request for proposal submission. So that is one process. Secondly, targeted. And this is where most of the people win. Most of my monies that I have been able to close is the targeted proposal, targeted fundraising. And how does it work? Where you map out the foundations, you map out all the sources of money that exist as per different categories that I mentioned. When you map them out, you get to understand what areas they fund, who they fund. And as part of understanding the areas and who they fund, you usually go to the previous organization that they have funded in the past. So that you understand, it's one thing for them to write, oh, this is our objective, this is who we fund. But it gives you a very clear picture of who they fund when you go to previous grant makers that they have given money. So you'll be able to see Wild, you'll be able to see Growth Africa, and they're like, oh, these ones fund ESOs. What were they funded for? This will give you insights on the things you can, if they were funded for accelerator program, then you cannot write to another accelerator program and they were funded 3 years ago. You have to think of something new. So it gives you a perspective what they have funded before, and based on their objective, what can they fund going into the future? And after you do that, you have a concrete idea of what they might be willing to fund versus your objective. And within your network and within the organization, you search the right person to speak to. And who is the right person to speak to? The right person to speak to might be the grant making manager, the business development manager, the thematic area manager, or the cluster, or the cluster or the focus area or thematic area lead. Those are the right people to talk to. Please don't target, unless you're introduced, don't target the CEO of the organization at the level of inquiry. If you don't know them, if you know them, well and good. If you don't know, it's not advisable, because they may not have specific understanding or knowledge of how to align at that level. And that has been my experience of having code lead turning warm. So those are the people you target, and those are the 2 separate things. So now as you do, you have created the target for call for application submission, and you have targeted approaches for fundraising. You ask yourself, the whole year, how many targeted outreach am I going to do? And outreach, remember, we have said you map out those organizations, you understand who they have funded, and then you see who you need to connect. And also the next layer is, can you look whether that person is in connection within someone within your network? I give an example. Someone from Kigali that I know reached out to me last week and asked me, I see you have a connection with this organization, and we have something ongoing with them, and there's something I am reaching out to do with them. Could you introduce me to this person? And I was so impressed, and I did an introduction. So the same thing, when you look through the people that they are in charge within your networks, is there anyone maybe in LinkedIn connected to them? I know it's a lot of work, but to succeed in targeted, you must do a lot of heavy lifting prior then the conversation become very smooth. So the question to you, or rather what you need to set aside is, what is your target for the quarter, every quarter, 4 quarters, cumulatively the whole year? And then now start reaching out based on what I have just taken you through. And with those timelines, then it become very solid. Your forecast for the whole year is these numbers from two, remember it's 2 fronts. In some cases, it's even 3 fronts because there are also, I know some of us also use events, attending certain trainings, like there can be as many fronts. I have just given you 2 fronts for the purpose of today's training that you can utilize. And remember, even as you do the second front of targeted, some of the activities that you need to ask yourself, or activity that you need to do, is attend events and attend existing ecosystem activities that are happening. If you're putting together, if you're curating and putting together consortium partners, those are the places that you're going to find some of the organization that you can team up with. So, and that's how you create a roadmap of milestone and deadlines of the key activities that you need to do in terms of sourcing and reaching out of the key, of different potential fundraising pipeline that you have put together that you're intending to close. What are the key tools? Fundraising strategy template. In this case, if you don't have a strategy as an organization, just get to write down what is the mission of the organization, what is the vision, what are the core values, and also now, please be able to write down what is the value proposition of your organization, and then what are the strategic goals or what are the strategic focus for you this year? If there isn't any written, you must have that as a fundraiser. And that is very important for you to be able to generate ideas and also generate key pipeline of contacts that you need to start reaching out to. So that is a fundraising template strategy or a fundraising strategy roadmap, donor mapping metrics, and then Gantt chart for timeline tracking. And what is that? So I've taken you through the mapping metrics. What I have said that we put different donors based on different categories of grant making. You put those together, and so that you are able to be very sure who you are targeting and when you need to be targeting them. Gantt chart is some sort of a tracking mechanism, just like a work plan, but this has the aspect of who is targeting where, when is it to happen, what is the next action, what is expected, like that is, it has timelines, it have who is responsible, when that activity need to happen and whether it is done or that is the status. So that is the Gantt chart in terms of tracking. You can use a simple work plan alongside donor mapping metrics, and I'll be showing you an example that will be quickly looking at as a task today. So yeah, so that's step 1 of pre-planning and strategy development. I'm going to post there and then give us a minute or two to ask any question for that step. Any question? Right? If there's no question, let me ask a question. What did we say is our first step? where do we start? If I am organization A and I want to start thinking around looking money for my organization, what is my first step? What do I need to do? Where do I start? Thank you, Leah. Define your needs. Anyone else who want to give it a shot? If you don't volunteer yourself, I will volunteer you. Remember, and Asha, karaoke. Oh, okay. Clearly outline the organization objective and key values. Thank you, Collins. Maureen Mara have a fundraising goal, which will be informed by organization strategic plan goals. Fantastic. I see you. Yeah, remember we said we agreed that for us to be able to get the knowledge, we must do a couple of things. What did we agree? And what percentage of knowledge? What percentage of knowledge or rather percentage of knowledge absorption are we looking at? What did we agree at the beginning? What do we need to do?
To hear and listen.
Yes, thank you, Richard. That's half of it. That's half of it.
Get involved.
Yeah, oh, perfect. Yes, and the last thing?
Do it.
Yeah, fantastic. Remember we said for us to be able to absorb all the information about fundraising? Yes, yes. Fantastic. We are all here. Thank you. We hear, we listen, we get involved and do it. If you want to get them to absorb and internalize all the knowledge for fundraising, we will listen, we will listen, we will hear, we will get involved, we will do it. If we do that, our learning will go up to 90% from 10%. So thank you so much for indulging me. So let me try to, I see our time is running and running fast. Like I said, fundraising is so, okay. I was supposed to cover only proposal writing, but I felt it will not do us so much good if we don't cover other aspects that will make you win. And we want to learn how to win and not just gather information on one aspect. So I will move us quickly a little bit this time so that we are able to finish this fundraising, the framework. We are able to go through the framework. And if I have covered a bit of it, so I will just quickly gloss over. So the second step is the prospective research and opportunity sourcing. The goal for this is to identify the right funding opportunities, align them with organization needs, so that we have covered quite well. So the actions are research funding opportunities, which I have said we are. The thing that I'm going to add is some of the tools or resources that you need. There is a foundation directory that exists, like a Grant Station, DevEx. There is funding for NGOs. Those are some of the tools that you can use. One for the existing opportunities that are currently open, and also for the existing foundations that exist and which areas they focus on. So use existing databases, leverage networks. Like I said, remember we said we have to start forming consortiums, right? Consortiums, whichever make you happy. So consortiums, if we are putting together consortiums, we must have certain organization on our corner and form some sort of an arrangement that you will be putting together consortium together. Some of those are mentioned here. You can agree to be identifying grants and philanthropies and corporate opportunities together and agree on a way of operating and working together. That the second aspect is segment the prospect. Categorize by priority, high value, recurring, new donors, and also categorize based on the different funding different funding sources that we went through, different funding sources that we went through earlier, assess alignment and based on the funders' mission, priorities, and funding criteria, as I said. And third, create a donor investor pipeline. This is also similar to the donor mapping that I mentioned before, and you can do this through the Excel to start with, or you can use sophisticated tools that exist, which is Salesforce, HubSpot. There's also Pipedrive, Pipeline, there's Airtable, and the rest of those. There's Notion also. And then monitor deadlines, set reminders for those. Remember, we said we have to plan. Part of the planning is just understanding the criteria and deadlines. What are the tools required? We have said for the SAM organization, you can use CRMs. For donor tracking, you can use Excel, but use something, please track. Use Excel, and I will be taking us through an example of how we can, or rather we'll be creating a tool together. Fundraising opportunity and tracking sheet. Like I said, we can use Excel. Prospect segmentation matrix. This is an aspect within the donor matrix that we just went through under step 1. So step 3, step 3, engagement and relationship building. Remember, we said we are using 2 approaches in this case. So first, we have the call for submission, RFBs, call for submission or request for proposal submissions, and we have the targeted. So in this case, we can use engagement and relationship building. The goal for this is to build relationship with potential funders before making an ask. And with this, remember, we have mapped out different donors with different thematic areas and classify them. So the different actions include initiate contact with prospects. And in this case, I have already mentioned or taken you through how you can go about it. As you map out, you see who is working there. Do they have a connection with anyone you do? You ask for a connection. You have thought, you have put together an idea or something that you think you can work together. Have the first meeting to just test out and test the temperatures and see whether they are willing and what they have in mind. And that might take a while, a back and forth. And with that, if there is an alignment, most of the time you'll be put that in paper or put a concept and share with us and we'll see. So if that is established, that is the first place of initial contact with prospect. And leverage mutual connection and warm introduction is very crucial into the process. Schedule meetings, as I have mentioned, engage through thought leadership. As I said, some aspect of targeted contact making and relationship building is going to the events, attending seminars, attending activities arranged, attending activities organized by the donors that you are looking to. But remember, when you attend those events, that is not the right time to start. It's the right time to introduce yourself, but it's not the right time to sell anything. You just need them to recognize you and you introduce yourself, but ask that I will be sending you an email for maybe we can catch up or review or something, because using the meeting to pitch is not the right way. Yeah, I can, because there's some, and I know this for a fact because you rarely have a productive conversation in the streets on corridors with the organization, but they will ask you, send me an email, and then we can have a meeting. So use those thought leadership events or sessions to create contact, get their contacts, and form some sort of rapport. And then from there, be very intentional to do a follow-up. And remember, the follow-up is also not a pitch, is explorative. In this case, you're just saying, I saw you doing this, I saw this activity, and this came to mind because we're also doing this, and we wanted to see if there are areas of collaboration, engagement, or areas that we can explore together. Some people will tell you, yes, I think we can. but we may not have money, and that's where you then come in and say, okay, I really like what you're doing, and I think it aligns with what we are doing. Could we start fundraising together? How do you go about fundraising? Maybe the person you're speaking to may not be the right one, the right person to speak about fundraising, because they don't, and they will say, I don't do fundraising, but I will introduce you to the right person. And that becomes fantastic way of getting relational or building relationship with that organization. And then from there, maintain regular communication with a partner. So one of the questions that I ask most of the people engage with at an explorative, and maybe it's not working out, and maybe you have agreed to fundraise together. I ask them, what are your areas of fundraising? What kind of opportunities are you looking for? If we see area opportunity in these areas, can we apply with you? And if they are the right person to talk to, and all, I ask those questions to the people that I inform, or rather are in charge or leading the fundraising effort within the organization. That way, they're giving you permission to continue contacting them, so that when you end a meeting, it doesn't end if they don't have money. If they don't have money, they are not the right people, they will introduce you. And if they introduce you, also ask them what areas are they focusing on specifically? Are they looking, most of the people, if they are decision maker within the key verticals or industry that they're in within the organization, they might be even have a target themselves to raise. That's where you find out if that's the case, and you ask them how do they go about fundraising and all that. You form some sort of a connection, and there will be reasons why they might want you to continue keeping regular communication with them. That is important as you go along. I have created a lot of connection with that kind of thinking, because it's not all about money, it's also about relationship that you build. So for number 3, what are different tools? Remember, we said that the communication that we put out must be personalized, emails, templates, donor engagement trackers. So I found that a very interesting tool, an extension that you can put in your email. It's free to a greater extent. I don't know, but I am using it and I haven't paid for it. Whenever we send out different reach out, it tracks. It tracks who the ones that have been read, the ones who, like it will tell me, this week you have sent 100, 40 have been read, 30 are not opened, and they will tell you also the reasons why they are not opened. And then if it's the email address, they'll tell you this did not reach. That is very nice. Some sort of a tracker to be able to see the engagement of the people you're reaching out for the first time and where that conversation is at. So yeah, that is step number 3. So I go to number 4, which is proposal development and submission. The goal of this is to develop winning proposals and pitches aligned with the funders or donors' requirement. This takes us back to the planning and strategy. Remember, at this point, you have the idea, you have done your planning, you have the strategy. We are just submitting. We are not putting, we can tweak the strategy, we can adjust certain aspects, but we are not putting strategy in place that have already been covered. And I know it sounds a lot of work, but I told you winning proposals are won at the planning and idea. They are not won at writing, because writing, you're just translating the ideas that you have put together into, it's crucial, it's super crucial, but the biggest chunk for you winning, it's spending a lot of time in prepping and putting documents together and refining the idea, so that then you can translate that idea into a very good, concise submission presentation of what you intend to do. So what are the key actions of putting this together? Understand the funder's requirement. We have done that within planning, and these include carefully reviewing eligibility criteria, priorities, and submission guidelines. The second action is to develop tailored proposal, which include addressing the funder's goal and how their project, your project meets their objective. And the other aspect is to include clear impact metrics, budgets, and sustainability plan. Remember, the proposal is very concise and tailored, addressing to the request of the funder. So this action is around how do you tailor the information you have to that. I spoke a bit about that, so I don't want to repeat it again, and how you go about that. It's all about aligning the objective with your own objective and the activities, and how those activities need to be very clear. And to make them clear, they have to be smart. And that we will be covering more in the next, in terms of the meat of the proposal and every aspect of the proposal. We will be covering that in the next, right now I'm just taking you through the guidelines and the processes that you need to have in place. So in putting tailored proposal, you must have smart objectives and activities. And smart objective and activity is a short for, SMART is, it have to be specific, right? So that is an acronym for SMART. It's an acronym. I'll be taking you through that, I think, in the next session. But yeah, I'll break it down. Just give me a sec. So the next action for this is prepare supporting document. Prepare supporting document, which is financial statement, legal document, organization structure, and everything else that the funder have requested you to submit to the application. And also make sure that when you're submitting, you're submitting based on what they have said, that the channel they have asked you to submit through. If it's an email, it's an email. If they have said through the portal, it's through the portal. And before this, as part of the planning, remember there is an aspect of, give me a sec.
That's the real company.
Sorry for that. Sorry. So, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. And so, yeah, you submit all the, so there will be organization that will ask additional documents that need to be submitted. So that need to be put together, and some might also ask for videos. You put videos together, pitch deck together, those all need to be put together. What are different tools that we need for this stage? Number 4 is the proposal templates. Some organization will give you a proposal templates with the areas that need to be covered. Others will just tell you these are the areas to be covered and these are the pages that the proposal need to be within this limit. So you just make sure that it's within the pitch decks. Some organization will ask for pitch decks templates, or they will give you. Others will have different annexes than they may ask, which is like log frame activities and all that. So those need to be submitted together, including work plans. And the final 2 steps, which work hand in hand, is the negotiation and due diligence. Which the goal is to navigate negotiation and ensure compliance with the funders. And I give a sad story. There's an organization that a funder we were working with, the December huge grant, it was approved and everything. We even did, we did a co-creation together and all that, and everything was in place. And then as they were doing the due diligence for this particular organization, a certain aspect of the past of them funding did not match up and this organization lost. So this is also, it can be up to 90% or 99%, but it's important for you not to plan things ahead before the money comes through. And also make sure that as an organization, you have done something called organization capacity assessment. And how do you do that? It's just a matter of having a criteria of, or rather, this organization or these funders might give you a criteria of the things that you need to have in place, just making sure that you work alongside someone who can make sure that you have those things in place so that you do not lose funding at the last minute of just being approved, you know? And as an organization, make sure that you are rigorously compliant. You're doing your tax returns, you have those receipts in place, you're doing proper finance, accounting and all those, because some of those things might make you lose grant funding when it's almost being awarded. So the different actions on those you may not have a lot of control over, but they include engage in negotiation, conduct a due diligence, prepare for site visits and interviews. In these cases, they might happen concurrently, all of them. And what I have seen, my experience has been that you, the proposal, the budget and all those that you submitted, you might need to redo at this point, which is okay, but also make sure that you have all the rigor compliance in place to be able to meet the requirement of the donor. So the tools are around here is to remember to ask for the due diligence or the checklist of funding and make sure that you're you are compliant, and compliance document and compliant document of organization within your organization. And the final steps for fundraising that are out there is making sure you have the signed contract for funding, to finalize the agreement, how the funding will happen, what kind of funding is it? Is it unrestricted? Is it restricted? What activities have been funded, to what tune? What are the financial guidelines? Do you need to implement as per the activity, as per the funding, as it is? Because some donors will say, we give you money per the budget line. It have to be spent per the budget line. You must do proper procurement per the budget line. You need to understand all those. And those are so important at these steps, because for that organization, this is where they messed up for the previous one. They were given everything, but they didn't take clear note of spending as per the budget line, and they spent certain money as lumps, not lump sums per se. Is, for example, for when you're doing certain activity, you might put them together and all that. That might have messed them up. So this is important. It may not sound like important at closing, but it is, because it gives you guidelines for spending the money and you don't have a headache at the end, or at the end of the first disbursement and you need to report and you don't know what are the guidelines to follow. So you make sure you understand what are the financial guidelines, how are the reporting guidelines, do you have templates for reporting or do you create one? Or do they have templates for guidelines that they need to share with you and take you through and all that? And also understanding the disbursement processes. Like I said, if it's restricted, what does that mean in terms of restriction? Is it per budget line, or is it per activity? Those are two different things, because you might have the activity one is to do one and it have sub-activity. Well, per budget line, it's those sub-activity. You must have that understanding within this activity. Grant agreements to have in place, acknowledgement of the fund of the funder, and then kick off the project. I have taken you through the specifics of those. And finally, if you do well in terms of onboarding, the post-funding relationship management becomes very easy, because you need to continue managing your relationship beyond just that funding. Some of these funders, if you have very good relationship that you build, they become multi-year, or their point of choice or organization of choice for their implementation as their implementing partner. And that's it in terms of guidelines framework for fundraising. I know it's a lot to chew, like I mentioned, but I think it's necessary for us to have that in mind in terms of frameworks. I'm going to pause there and ask if there is any question. And after we address the question, I will give us 10 minutes break. We will still remain here. We can stretch, we can go take some water, something to drink for 10 minutes, bathroom breaks, and then we come back. And then when we come back, it will be a task that we will work and then we will discuss. So any question? Right, any question? If there's no question, I'll ask myself and I'll volunteer as. Yes, Maureen, Miriam, go right ahead.
Hi, Anne.
Hi.
My question is seeking to understand from an investor's point of view. Some funders request for a call for concept before the submission of the final proposal when they want to do the shortlisting. And so I would want to understand from an investor's point of view the reasoning behind the call for concept. What as an entrepreneur or an ESO we need to know the information to incorporate in the call for concept so that it goes through, so that we manage to get to the proposal stage. Yeah, thank you.
All right. And I just want to mention that being an investment, having a lot of experience in investments, investment processes are a bit different, but there is a lot of what's called overlaps with also what we are doing here, which is fundraising processes. There's a lot of overlaps, but it's a bit different. And also you will also find some grant-making organization requesting for the call for concepts. What are they for? So you will see some of these organizations have streamlined their processes so well, to an extent they want to create elimination mechanism every step of the way. For those who have hired, you have seen, you put one advert of even an intern and you get 2,000 applications, right? And you're wondering, where do I start in terms of sifting through this together, right? One candidate that I need, right? And that's what happens with call for concept. When you put out a call for proposals or even a call for investment, you get 10,000 applications. And they're so heavy. If it's a proposal, have so much information. As an organization, to be able to sift through that is so much work internally. So most of the organization, what they have done is to streamline their processes and have put stopgap measures in between those processes to be able to eliminate proposals or concept or thought processes, ideas that they are not aligned with their criteria or objective. So you will find that someone will say, we have an open window for call for application. We are receiving one-pager concept. So that is a way of sifting through before they receive a lot of heavy information that they need to put in a lot of time and effort within the organization for them to be able to to establish who to move forward with and who not to move forward with. So that's why there is that call for concept very early on, limited to specific areas and specific information so that it's easily for them to be able to identify, can they move forward with you or not? Make sense? Good. Right. Okay, I have a question for us. And the question is, and anyone can answer, what is the most important section? What is the most important section of a grant proposal when you must convince the funder that your project aligns perfectly with the mission and goals?
Sorry, and please repeat the question.
Yeah, what is the most important section of a grant proposal where you must convince the funder that your project aligns perfectly with their goal, mission, or with their goal and mission? Here we are. I've posted the question.
Let me give it a hack, because
Yeah.
I don't think there's like one specific criteria, especially if it's a funder that would provide you like an application template. But if you're doing it by yourself, I think there'd be two key main areas: the introduction or the executive summary, tailored to show how the organization's mission, goal, or programs align to what the funder is looking to fund for. So that would be one area. Then the other area would be under the proposed approach or the proposed activities, or whichever name you'd want to give. Also at that particular stage, you could be able to show the alignment element, because you'd be proposing activities that are aligned to what the funder is aiming to achieve by him or her providing you the funds to implement that particular project. So I'd look at it in two forms: at the introductory stage or under the proposed areas of activities or proposed concept or something of the sort.
Thank you, Maureen. Thank you for that elaborate answer. And Dr. Faith Yato, you also mentioned. So, and both of you, you're partly correct. So the section is, the introduction part speak more about the organization and around the activities that you want to do. But depending on the structure of the proposal will be around the statement of need or the problem statement, right? The statement of need or the problem statement. That need to be so concise and aligned with the funder's objectives, the funder's areas of focus versus your objectives and the areas of activities that you're putting together. Remember, in this specific area, you're not putting activity, you're articulating what is the problem and what is the need, and you break it down, aligning with those two aspects as you spoke. So that is one of the key area that even when I'm going through proposals for investments, it's just to understand what is it that they're doing and how are they going about it. If that convinces me, it's easier to go to the activities. Remember, that's why when sometimes you might get funding, or rather you might get a yes, but you're told you have to redo your activities. We don't feel that these activities are key because maybe you are very well articulated in terms of the problem statement and how you will go about it, but activities were not sharp enough, and the donors can always help you sharpen your activities. Good. And yes, thank you, Jared. Thank you. So the last, it's a question, but I put it as a riddle. So, and the riddle is, I'm the part of the proposal that outlines the specific steps you will take, the timeline you will follow, the methods you will use. Without me, the plan would lack structure. What am I? Is it clear? Tarido? I have put it on the chat. Can I repeat? Yeah. Maureen Moraisi, yeah. Maureen, Miriam, Maureen Mora, and Richard, and Dr. Faith, and Esther. Who else? Jared. Now, I have not heard from Temesi. I have not heard from Alex. I have not heard from Susan. Wilder. I will call you out if you have not heard from me. Okay, Bruna, I have heard from you. Yeah, James. Yeah, James. Jeanette, have not heard from you. Remember, we said we are learning, all of us. We are learning and we must participate. We are all correct. It's two parts. It's two parts. It's two parts. I guess, is there any one person who have gotten it? It's two parts. There's someone who said strategy. No, it's not strategy. Work plan you got, but that is one part. Methodology you got, that is one part. Methodology you got, one part. Implementation methodology, that's one part. So it's two parts. Work plan you got, one part. Project strategy, no. Project log frame, no. That is a breakdown of key activities for the outcomes and putting together the outcomes, outputs, and all that in place. Yes, Stephanie. Ooh, umetumia mwa Kenya. Methodology and work plan. Yes, that's the answer. Methodology and the work plan. So that should be the answer. The project work plan and methodology. Good. So I'm giving us a break. We all take a break, take a breather, take a glass of water. And then when we come back, we will do an activity, a task within the lines of what we have been able to work through together. Yeah, so it's 4:20. Let's just say it's 4:24. So 10 minutes, Brian, it's what time?
That will be 4:33.
4:34. So we come back 4:34. Okay, good. So we are still remaining here, so don't leave the call. Just take a breather, stand, take a walk, and then we come back. And then we will come and do the task. I guess we are right. Show some reactions, send some reaction. Are you back? A hand. How is the training so far? Share some reaction so that I see a bit of us are back. How is the training so far? Collins, I see your reaction. Maureen, you're back. Gerard, I see your reaction. Caroline, hi. Manzi, hi. Temesi, I see. I see Jared, I see. Susan, Judith, Jack, Simeon, Jeanette, Judge, Bruna, Florient, Esther, Alex, Mases, Patricia, Faith, Deborah, Vincent. Are we back? Are we back? Are we back? All right. And I'm asking this because when yes, I'm asking because what we are about to transition to, you must be back because you are supposed to do a task. Stephanie, hi. Oh yeah, there is a screen too. Yes, screen two. Oh, I see Stephanie, you're in my screen too. Leah, Stephanie, Nathifa, good to see you. Gerard, and all, yeah, I see good number of us. So yeah. Okay. Good, 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 good. All right, so I am going to transition us to a quick task. And it's to cover, this task is to cover what we have just discussed or what I've taken you through. The material I've taken you through, I'll share with Brian, the framework, and he will share with you when I'm done with the session. He will be sharing with you. And I guess he will also share the presentation when I am done with the second session, physical session, because today we didn't cover a lot of the presentation. But what I want us to take us through right now is more of a practical task of where we start. And I'm just walking us through quickly. And then in the next 20 minutes, 15 minutes, we do the task. No, it's going to 7 to 4:30. So 3 minutes, I take you through. 10 minutes, 12 minutes, you go through it, you do it. And then the next 10 minutes before 5, we discuss, and then we call it a day. So it's marathon. So let's just do that quickly. And this is just to give us some sort of hand-on task, or rather, what do you call it? Practical skills of how we start mapping out different donors. So the task is for those who are starting from scratch and you don't map out donors and you don't have a fundraising pipeline tracker. How do you start? And I'm again going to use a tracker that I created using Assek as an example, and we will quickly go through it in the next 3 minutes, and then you're creating your own tracker. For those who have it, you can share. Your work will be to certain aspect of the tracker that you don't have, you share, or you say what you're going to improve with your tracker, or you say what is working with your tracker for those who have. Okay, quick. Okay, good. So this is a tracker I'm using as an example for the Assek fundraising pipeline tracker. And like I said, it's just the things that I said need to go there. It gives you an overview of who are you targeting and where you're scouting the deal from. In this case, the deal, there are these deals that I quickly picked online. And it have these different areas. I'm not going to go through different areas because I'll have it on the screen. So I have different areas, which is deadline, status, organization, application link, areas of interest, budgets, countries applicable, eligibility criteria, which is requirements for submission, potential partners, sorry. Is it me who disappeared? Is it me who disappeared? Please, someone tell me where I disappeared at. Like, what was the last thing you had?
You're talking about the tracker. Then you disappeared.
Brian, you can let me know. At what point did I drop off? If I dropped off? Or if it's all of us, then I just continue.
No, I think it's all of us because
Oh, it's all of us?
it's all of us.
Okay. Okay. And I see my internet is a bit unstable. So, okay. So let me switch off my camera. Okay. So again, okay. So this is the tracker. So the beauty with this is that it helps you to curate and put together all the application leads that you have. It help you consolidate and put them together. These help you have the internal conversation either with your senior or with the team that you're working with for all the opportunities that you have. If for those who have some people who are helping with, you can ask the people within the team that are helping you with to consolidate all the application or leads that they have. And then when you're having the fundraising status meeting every week, you walk through this to see what you have. So that is the opportunity tracker. And then there is so remember we said it's two fronts. So this is the application side. We said we have also to put together we have to map out the donors the donors that we are speaking to. In this case, we have the government government donor funding, we have the foundation, we have philanthropies, we have the CSR, we have all the other institutional funders. This is what you can put in place. And remember, this is my version. You can make yours better, reduce, add. You can create these also where you put all those different categories and start curating different top organization that you have identified. So different areas you have objective, link, name, contact, email, sector, status. So in this case, what have you done? I reached out for introduction, email sent out, action. What action do you need to do? Interact with this and interact with the partners, or they will introduce you to their Kenyan contact. And then what is the next steps? So that is, remember we are two fronts, submission, application, and network building and targeted sourcing of opportunities. Yeah, so now this is our task. I want you to create these two trackers for your organization. And you create it. If you have, look through what you have and see, think through what areas you think you can improve. There is organization tracker and also opportunity tracker. One is to track the submission of application. The other one is to track the opportunities that you're reaching out. The other add-on area that I have not taken you through that we will is where you track what applications that you have submitted and what status are they at. That we will cover next time. Because it's called the pipeline tracker, which is just an add-on to these opportunity fundraising pipeline tracker. So that is the task, and I leave it at that. And I would want us to take the next 10 minutes to create our own pipeline tracker, use an Excel, like I said, put the different areas, quickly Google online using the different opportunity that I said that exist. There is the defects, there is opportunity for NGOs, there is a fund for Africa, there is the development aid, there is a lot of platform that you can find these opportunities and see what 2-3 opportunities you find, you put in your tracker, you put the area of interest, you put the budget, and you put funding criteria and all the other areas that you think your tracker need. Good. That's it. That's it. That's the task for the next 10 minutes. Is it clear? Is it clear? So we can start putting it together. We will share. And remember, I will select randomly, and you will have to share online what you have. You will share your screen. Brian, please make sure that anyone can share their screen. so that then we see what we have been able to put together. So I keep quiet at this point, and then we start doing our task, and then I will speak again at 4:55. Hi, everyone. So we are back. And we don't have a lot of time. So I would want us to quickly share what we have been able to do together, or what you have been able to put together, sorry. And I will volunteer us to share so that we can move quickly. So I'm going to ask Susan. Magu. Susan. Kindly, could you share what you have been able to put together? The next person to share will be Collins Omondi. So if I mention your name and you're ready, you can just quickly go. Susan, if you're speaking, you're on mute, we can't hear you. Collins?
Sorry,
Go ahead.
Anne, I am still in the process of creating one because I joined the meeting quite late. So kindly, if we could just divert to someone else.
What do you have in place? What do you just have in place? Just share what you have in place.
Maybe I can just talk about what I have in place.
Yeah.
So for the organization I work for is Circular Innovation Hub, and we are constantly looking for funding and funders that are going to align with our objectives, either be restrictive or non-restrictive type of funding. So what we do is by the end of the year, like for example, when the year ended in 2024, we had already created like a pipeline for Q1 and Q2, potential funding and how much we want to bring in terms of funding and the number of businesses we want to support in each program, and also the nature of the programs that we are going to support. So at the moment, that is what I have.
Okay, but that's quite broad. That's quite broad. I want us to narrow down to just pipeline creating, because pipeline creating is thinking, who are we targeting and how do we, is there any application out there, or is there any foundation that you have just quickly put together? If you haven't done that, that's okay, but just start thinking from that angle, because it will help you narrow down to more targeted scouting of opportunities.
Yes. So the type of programs we aim is mainly on incubation, acceleration, and training.
No, not type of programs, type of funders. It's okay, Susan, sorry for putting you on spot, because I'm just trying to help us have some sort of a process. Rather than think of what you can do, think what is out there first. And then when you know what is out there first, ask yourself, what can I do with it? That's what I want us to think. Because when you think of what you have, and then you look out there, you'll be so limited. So it's important to know what is out there first. That's why I told us to look at opportunities that exist out there, either from existing application for RFPs, or you map out donors and foundation and the rest of those that you can contact. So let me just pack you a little bit. I move on to someone else, because I can see time is running out. And I beg if I can ask you, please give me 5 minutes more after 5, and then we can drop off. So Collins next, and then Temesi.
So for me, I think it's the first time to be in this grant and proposal writing business. So our company deals with the communication consultancy. So it's kind of different in terms of looking for funding because most of the times the funding that we usually try to apply for is for to allow us to help other organizations like publicize themselves or get publicity.
Yeah,
So
that is, it falls under RFPs, actually. It does. It may not be grant funding, it will be RFPs to provide specific services. So you just need to shift your thinking to RFPs and then ask yourself who is out there looking for RFPs or what RFPs are there. But also you can do targeted sourcing of companies that you can form, you can target to seek, you sort them to give them access of what you're doing, overview of what you're doing, so they can seek your services. I don't know whether it makes sense. Do you see it making sense? That's
yeah,
how
that makes a lot of sense, because that's how we are trying to align for this year. That's why we even applied for this course, so that we can get to learn how to partner. And I felt that I'm getting much out of it, because now we can align with other organizations that get funding, or we can also just apply for funding to help other organizations, the way you've said. So it's a new venture for us. We have never done it before. So that is why I've even tried to think of which kind of organization does this kind of funding. At the moment, I have just Googled, I'm not seeing that kind of organization as that now.
Yeah, I would ask you to stick more to RFPs, request for proposals for your area. And this goes to anyone else who is running a consultancy. So grant proposal writing may not apply blankly to everyone, but RFP applies to everyone. So as you look for RFPs, request for proposals within your areas of focus as a consultancy, then everything will just be as, in terms of the sections of the proposal, it will be based on the areas of support and services offering that your organization is offering, that you will elaborate. I hope that makes sense. Good. Temesi, and then we can close.
Thanks. And should I share my screen?
Yes, please do.
Yeah, I have so many tabs open. I don't. Yeah. So my name is Temesi. I work for South Africa. So we have an existing tab, pipeline tracker open. But from what you've shared, I've seen there's a lot of room for us to customize what we have. So I've been trying to edit what we currently have, and for what I was working on specifically, because we have different aspects on how we engage with the entrepreneurs that we work with. So how do I customize the partnerships that are specific for now the sustainability department that we have at SOMO, to be able to track the existing opportunities that we have. I've picked out a few from the ones that you'd shared, and also just some of them we already have like ongoing conversations, then creating the different tabs. So something that is different from what you've shared and what we think we should work on to also customize our pipeline tracker is to now, I think I like the progress from now seeing the open opportunities going to the ones that you have reached out to and the ones that are ongoing. So we have one that tracks everything in one spreadsheet, but now I think we are going to work on how do we now separate the different levels at which we are engaging with the potential partners. Sorry, I couldn't share my screen. It's a lot of things. Yeah. But yeah, that's what I was trying to do. I can share like a link to that for your perusal after the meeting. Yeah.
Fantastic, Temesi. That is spot on. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening. I really like what you're saying, Temesi, because when we have everything clustered in one tracker, we lose track of where different conversations are. And I know they are someone in charge of tracking everything, but then it's also, as a fundraising personnel, I know it can be quite daunting to follow everything from one tracker. So that's why for me, I usually operate with, I know sometimes it may look like a lot of work. There is a proposal tracking, and then also there is a targeted opportunities tracking, and then all of them congregate into one tracker, which is a pipeline tracker, to show what have we submitted, what is the closing possibility, what is the status, or are we following, what are the next steps. They all congregate into that one tracker to show where we are in our fundraising goal. So that said, thank you everyone. You have been such an awesome group. And I leave us with one, it's not, I can't remember, I should have claimed the the saying, the statement, but it has bits and pieces of, if there is one, the most resilient people in the organization are fundraising and proposal writing team, because you are thrown in so many different directions within the organization. Oh my God, you're thrown into this side, this department, and all this, and you have to somehow comprehend and put those thought process into a process that someone else will understand and fund you. So I salute you. I commend you for the job you do for your organization, for ability to be able to put everything you hear into a conversation, into a proposal that someone is able to read and make sense out of. So the most resilient people and people who are thrown around all the areas of organization are fundraising people. So good job on that. And I wish you all the best. Looking forward to the physical session because then I'll be able to see the faces of the people as we do the training and as we go through the different steps of proposals. Now we have just done the tracker. How do we move from now? We know the organization that we need to look opportunities from. How do we start looking for those opportunities, and what are different segments of the proposals that exist, and how do you make concrete winning, what do you call it, content that the father will feel compelled to be able to work with you. That's what we'll look next time. So please share your reaction. How do you think the session was? I know Brian we all already shared feedback form. Kindly share your feedback. Looking forward to the next physical session and hoping, I want to hear that by the end of this year, most of you will come and tell me, you know what? We submitted this number of proposals and at least we got one or two out of that. I'll be so proud to hear that. All right, over to you, Brian. I think
Thank
that's
you
the
very
end for me.
much, Anne, for that insightful session. Definitely, I'm getting a lot of positive feedback on my end about the session, and a lot of people really want to attend the physical session. So as you drop off, make sure to leave your feedback. I've shared an email with the same link and also details about the next session, which will happen on 5th of February. That is Wednesday next week from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. So be purpose to join, and I hope to see you there. I'll be sharing more information as we move along. Thank you and goodbye.